Peter, I do have a question. 7.1.
Yep, perfect.
And I think that's everything.
I think that is it.
I'll just leave it on agenda. Thank you.
And Charlotte, there's another motion I just emailed you as well for 10.1.
Not to worry, Peter. I'll go get that now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Colin. I see that you've joined the meeting. I'm going to unmute your mic. Can we test your audio, please?
Sure. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through clear. When your item is called, we'll definitely bring you in as a presenter, and you'll have full access to your microphone.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Lauren. Welcome to the meeting. I've just unmuted your mic. Can we test your audio, please?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You're coming through clear. The same is going to be for you. When your item is called, we'll bring you in as a participant, and you'll have full access to your microphone.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Brian. Welcome to the meeting. I've unmuted your mic. Can we test your audio, please? Brian Ganesh? We'll come back and test your audio in a moment.
It's okay now, Tammy.
Tammy,
We're going to get ready to start.
Councillor Willens, can you hear me okay? I had to plug in my headset.
Councillor Willens, you're still coming through loud and clear, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
And Chair Medeiros, at 7 o'clock, you can proceed with the meeting. I believe there is quorum, and we'll confirm that at roll call.
Thank you very much, City Clerk, and I would like to welcome everyone to our virtual meeting of Brampton's Planning and Development Committee. We will begin the meeting with the City Clerk calling the roll for attendance at today's meeting.
Members of committee, I will call your name. Please indicate your presence in tonight's meeting. Councillor Santos.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Vasante.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Willens.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi has indicated he will be absent tonight. Councillor Bowman.
Present.
Chair Medeiros is present.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Fortini.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon. Councillor Dillon.
I'm here.
Thank you. And I don't see Mayor Brown present on this one. So, Mr. Chair, you do have quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Do any members wish to add any business item for tonight's meeting? I see none. So I'm not sure if there's any new business items, any updates, clerk?
Mr. Chair, yes, there are a number of updates. There was an email sent out about a half hour ago and information posted on the web with a revised agenda and some additional updates. Just a few things of note. There were some additional delegations for items already listed for delegations on tonight's agenda. And there is the additional correspondence 11.5, and this is in regard to item 7.10 on tonight's agenda in regard to the interim control bylaw for Northwest Brampton. There is correspondence from the region of Halton and from Jeff Wilker on behalf of Halton Hills, I believe it is, from Thompson Rogers in regard to that item.
Okay, thank you very much. So I do have a motion with the additional changes as just updated by the city clerk, moved by Councillor Fortini to approve the agenda, that the agenda for Planning and Development Committee meeting of December 6th be approved. Is anyone opposed? I see none. Our next item is declarations of interest on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Do any members have any declarations? I see none.
Yes, you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councillor Willens.
Councillor Willens, I'd like to declare a conflict on 5.3 as the proposal is basically my next door. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So city clerk will so note it. We now move to our consent motion. And I will read the items and again, councillors, Councillor Fortini, you want to speak? Go ahead.
You're going, yeah, Mr. Chair. Sorry, you're going through the consent. I was just going to put 5.1 in consent, Howden Recreation Center. That's fine. Go through it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items to be held for debate. Item 7.1, staff presentation. It's a staff presentation, so it will be held. 7.2 is a presentation, will be held. 7.3, there's a delegation, so will be held. Our next item is 7.4.
Mr. Chair?
To amend. Yes.
There is a delegation now for 7.4. It's identified as 6.5 on the agenda, so that should be held.
Okay, so that will be held. Item 7.5, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw. Proposed draft plan subdivision Glen, Schneider and Associates, Mattamy Homes, Ward 6. In consent. Item 7.6 will be held for delegations. Item 7.7, draft report, initiated draft official plan amendment to implement the new airport intermodal secondary plan area 4. In consent. Item 7.8, staff report, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Delta Engineering Services, Tripati, Karinder, Kumar, Nisha, Queen Street West, Ward 4. In consent. Item 7.9, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Maple Lodge Farms Limited, Winston, Churchill, Boulevard, Ward 6. In consent. Item 7.10, staff report regarding interim control bylaw. Now, City Clerk, did you say we received correspondence regarding that?
We have, Mr. Chair. It would be identified as 11.5.
Okay, so that will be held. Heritage minutes, Brampton Heritage Board, 8.1. In consent. 8.2, the minutes from November 16th, the Brampton Heritage Board.
I'd like to hold that one. I believe that's the one that is an item I have just a question on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Willens. Item 10.1, discussion item at the request of City Councillor Singh regarding Development Charges Act. So Councillor Singh, do you still want to hold for discussion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so that's held. Item 11.1, held for statutory public meeting. 11.2 is held for statutory public meeting, and 11.3 is held for statutory public meeting. And City Clerk, do you want to summarize what we've decided today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of committee, the following items are going to be for consideration for the consent motion. Item 7.5, staff report regarding an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision, Glen, Schneider and Associates, Mattamy Homes in Ward 6. Item 7.7, a staff report regarding a city-initiated official plan amendment to implement the new airport intermodal secondary plan, Area 4. Item 7.8, a staff report regarding an application to amend the zoning bylaw, Delta Engineering, at 1061, 1071 Queen Street West in Ward 4. 7.9, an application to amend the zoning bylaw, Maple Lodge Farms on Winston Churchill Boulevard in Ward 6. Item 8.1, minutes, Brampton Heritage Board from October 19th. And those are the items to be considered as part of the consent motion, Mr. Chair. Everything else will be held.
Okay, thank you very much. So I do have a motion to approve the consent motion, moved by Councillor Williams. Is there anyone?
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, it doesn't list. I just want to confirm 7.4 10196 is that 7.4 or 7.5? 10196 Bramley.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that's 7.4.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no problem. So again, a motion moved by Councillor Williams to move the consent motion, and it's subject to recorded vote, so I'll hand it to the City Clerk.
Members of committee, all in favor of the consent motion, Councillor Santos.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Vasante.
Yes.
Councillor Willens.
Yes.
Councillor Bowman.
Yes.
Councillor Williams.
Yes.
Councillor Fortini.
Yes.
Councillor Singh.
Yes.
Councillor Dillon. So yes, Chair Medeiros.
Yes.
That carries unanimously, 9-0.
Okay, our next section is the statutory public meetings. And again, just as a reminder that this is a public meeting of the Planning and Development Committee held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act of Ontario. The proposals to be heard at this public meeting are the result of applications made under the Planning Act. These are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as city-initiated proposals. I believe we have one city-initiated proposal for a statutory public meeting. The intent of the public meeting is to receive submissions from the public regarding these proposals. Committee consideration of the proposal will occur at a future meeting when planning staff bring forward the final recommendation reports on each proposal. The city also posted to its website, brampton.ca, supporting information documentation for the development applications for public review and reference. We will now proceed to consider 3 items on this evening's statutory public meeting agenda. And after the consideration, public meeting items, committee will deal with the balance of the agenda items on tonight's agenda. So our first item is item 5.1, which is an application to amend the official plan to permit development of a new Howden Recreation Center and relocation of a new soccer field at Lester B. Pearson Catholic Elementary School. So I will now hand it over to Alex Sepe from our Development Planning, Building and Economic Development Department. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Chair Medeiros. Good evening, Chair, committee members, staff, members of the public. My name is Alex Seppi. I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by the City of Brampton Park Planning and Development on behalf of the City of Brampton Recreation. Next slide, please. So the subject property is located within Ward 7 in the eastern part of Brampton. It is located east of Dixie Road, south of Howden Boulevard, and west of Central Park Drive. Next slide. So the applicant is proposing an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate a one-to-one land exchange amongst the City of Brampton and Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board. The purpose of the land exchange is to provide for the relocation of the soccer field located at Lester B. Pearson Catholic Elementary School and a new Howden Recreation Center. Next slide, please. The new property boundaries facilitated through the land exchange will result in the relocation of the new Howden Recreation Center along the street frontage of Howden Boulevard, providing a defining street edge, while the Lester B. Pearson soccer field will be relocated south of the existing property limits of Lester B. Pearson Catholic Elementary School. Next slide, please. So this map shows properties within 240 meters of the proposed development. Owners of these properties would have received notice by direct mail with respect to the proposal. Notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the City of Brampton website. I have received correspondence from some of the neighboring properties which have been appended to this agenda. Next slide, please. The site is located east of Dixie Road, south of Howden Boulevard, west of Central Park Drive. The surrounding land uses are described as follows. North, existing single detached residential homes. South, existing single detached residential homes and Hanover Public School. To the east, there's several existing residential townhouse blocks, Central Park Baptist Church, and Roundtree Montessori School. And to the west is existing single detached residential homes. Next slide, please. So the subject property located at 140 Howden Boulevard is designated residential, and 150 Howden Boulevard is designated open space in Schedule A of the City of Brampton official plan. An amendment is required to permit the proposed uses. Next slide, please. So the subject property is designated Howden Boulevard is designated elementary school, and 150 Howden Boulevard is designated recreation open space in the Bramley secondary plan. An amendment is required to permit the proposed uses. Next slide, please. In the City of Brampton zoning bylaw, 140 Howden Boulevard is zoned institutional 1, I1, and 150 Howden Boulevard is zoned open space in the City of Brampton zoning bylaw 270-2004. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the proposed uses. Next slide. So there are no major outstanding issues for the site. The above images are from my site visit. Image 1 is the current driveway from 150 Howden Boulevard. This would be the rear portion of the site facing Howden Boulevard. Image 2 is the driveway in the existing lot line abutting 140 Howden Boulevard, taken from 150 Howden Boulevard. This is where the recreation will generally be located upon its relocation. To the east or the right of the fence is where the new where the new recreation center will be located. Picture 3 is the limits of Howden Boulevard, the rec center, which is currently going to be reconfigured and removed, and this will be the current location of the rec center. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to council, the application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region Appeal official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan. Next slide, please. This slide shows where staff are in review of the application. The application has been circulated to city departments as well as other agencies for technical comments. Notice of the public meeting was given to property owners in vicinity of the property and published in the newspaper and on the city's website. We are now at the public meeting stage. Committee members and staff are here to listen to any feedback. Next steps regarding after tonight's public meeting. So comments received from city departments, agencies, members of the public, and matters raised through the public delegations will be reviewed and evaluated. The proposal will be further assessed against provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the region official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan and secondary plan. Once the analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report. The recommendation report will address all matters raised by members of the public, external agencies, and other city departments. Anyone that provided their contact information with respect to this application will be advised when the recommendation report will be considered by the committee. Once City Council makes a decision on the application, there's an opportunity to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Next slide. So the report associated with tonight's meeting is available online, and the presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Alex Seppi, and my contact information is posted on the screen. Also on the screen is the contact information for the applicant, Roger DeCuna. Thank you. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have, City Clerk, do we have any delegations?
We don't have any delegations, Mr. Chair. We just have correspondence under item 11.1. Mr. Chair, I do see in the chat that Councillor Fortini may be declaring a conflict. We need to deal with that right now. Councillor Fortini, can you please clarify?
Yes, Peter, sorry, I was gonna ask, I didn't know this was coming. Yeah, I own a home right beside there, so I want to declare a conflict on this, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's now noted. Councillor Fortini is going to not participate in this item. And
Thank you.
we do have present, if there's any questions from committee, staff from Community Services, Roger Dacuna and Jessica Paragula are here in case there are any questions.
Okay, are there any, I see no questions from members of committee. So as I see none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Williams to approve the staff report recommendations and the accompanying correspondence. And we will take the motion as read. Is there anyone opposed? I see none. Motion carries. Our next item is item 5.2, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, City of Brampton, 80 Bramley Road. City Clerk, do we have delegations for this item?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do. We have a presentation from the applicant, and we do have a delegation following the staff presentation.
Okay. So I do believe, is this, Alex, do you want to start off? Yep.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Medeiros. So good evening, Chair, committee members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Alex Seppi. I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this application, or the purpose of this public meeting, is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Malone Given Parsons, prepared on behalf of Holborn Group. Next slide, please. The subject property is located within Ward 7 in the eastern part of Brampton. It is located on the west side of Bramley Road, south of Avondale Boulevard. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing a 7-story residential apartment building. In total, the applicant is proposing 54 residential units, 1 level of underground parking space, and indoor amenity spaces. Vehicular access is proposed from Avondale Boulevard. The site will have a floor space index, or FSI, of 3.08. Next slide, please. This map shows properties within 240 meters of the proposed development. Owners of these properties would have received notice by direct mail with respect to the proposal. Notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the City of Brampton website. I've received correspondence from some of the neighboring properties which have been appended to the agenda. Next slide, please. So as mentioned previously, the site is located west of Bramley Road, south of Avondale Boulevard. The surrounding land uses include, so to the north, there's existing single detached residential homes. To the south, there's high-rise residential condominium towers, city open space pathway, and commercial and industrial uses. To the east, there's a mix of industrial and commercial uses. And to the west, there's existing single detached residential and commercial uses. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated residential in Schedule A of the Brampton Official Plan. An amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide. The property is designated low-density residential in the Bramley Secondary Plan. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the proposed uses. Next slide. The subject property is currently zoned residential semi-detached A1. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the proposed uses. Next slide, please. Here you'll see building renderings. Image 1 and 2 are the building view from Avondale Road, or Avondale Road and Avondale Boulevard and Bramley Road. This would be the north portion of the building. The images are facing southerly. Building 3 is the building stepping from the west side of the building. Next slide, please. Current items under review. There are a few items that staff are monitoring on this file. Site layout to ensure a high quality of design and connectivity. Ensuring that the massing, height, and stepping are appropriate for the abutting uses. The preservation and/or compensation planting for existing trees on property. And the incorporation of existing bus stop and passenger amenities along Avondale Boulevard. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, Provincial Policy Statement, conformity with the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region Appeal Official Plan, and the City of Brampton Official Plan. Next slide, please. This slide shows where staff are in the review process for this application. The application has been circulated to city departments as well as other agencies for technical comments. Notice of the public meeting was given to property owners in the vicinity of the property and published in the newspaper and on the city's website. We are now at the public meeting stage. Committee members and staff are here to listen to any feedback. After tonight's public meeting, comments received from city departments, agencies, members of the public, and matters raised through the public delegations will be reviewed and evaluated. The proposal will be further assessed against the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the regional official plan, and the city's official plan and secondary plan. Once the analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report. The recommendation report will address all matters raised by members of the public, external agencies, and other city departments. Anyone that provided their contact information with respect to this application will be advised when the recommendation report will be considered by the committee. Once City Council makes a decision on the application, there is an opportunity to appeal the decision to the local Planning and Appeal Tribunal. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online, and the presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Alex Seppi, and my contact information is posted on the screen. Also on the screen is the contact information for the applicant, Lauren Capolino, from Malone Given Parsons. Thank you. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, we have delegations.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do. Tammy, can you please bring in Lauren Capilongo from Malone Given Parsons on behalf of the applicant that has a presentation, and then that will be followed by a delegation from an interested party, Michelle Drenters. If you can bring Michelle in as well.
So good evening, members of committee. My name is Lauren Capilongo. I'm a planner and principal with the firm Malone Given Parsons, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Crown Jewel Corporation. Next slide, please. As explained by city staff, the Crown Jewel lands are located at the southwest corner of Avondale Boulevard and Bramley Road, and they're adjacent to existing residential subdivision. The site is 0.919 hectares in size and currently contains a single detached dwelling. The lands also have direct frontage on Avondale Boulevard and Bramley Road. Next slide, please. In terms of surrounding context, there are a number of positive elements in the surrounding area, which our opinion makes the Crown Jewel land suitable for a mid-rise development that's being proposed here and before you tonight. The Crown Jewel lands are surrounded by existing high-density residential buildings to the immediate south, as you can see on this graphic on the screen. And then there's a low-density residential to the north and west. In our opinion, a mid-rise building on the subject site creates an opportunity to provide a built-form transition from the high-density development to the immediate south to the residential dwellings to the north and west of the lands. And further, in terms of the surrounding context, there is a commercial plaza with the Shoppers Drug Mart and other convenient retail along Avondale Boulevard, just west of the site, that provides retail that serves the neighborhood community. And there's also an existing park located on the east side of Bramley Road, north of Avondale and Dearborn, which serves as the amenity space for existing and future residents of this area. Next slide, please. In terms of site context, there are also a number of elements that we think are very beneficial to the location of the lands. Bramley is a major arterial roadway that is well served by transit, and it connects transit riders to the Bramley GO station, which is located to the south. There are various bus stops located immediately adjacent to the site or within 100 meters of walking distance, which provide ample opportunity for future residents to access transit and reduce the overall vehicular trips to the site. The Crown Jewel lands are within a gateway mobility hub, and they're also within a 650-meter walking distance to the existing Zoom bus rapid transit slot along Steeles Avenue. The subject lands are on the periphery of a major transit station area, and that's the area that's shown in yellow on the screen. And within that area, the city's provincial policies really require higher densities to be located within these MTSA areas to support transit ridership. While the lands are not within the MTSA, they are on the immediate periphery of it, and they provide a good opportunity to locate a mid-rise building to provide that transition between heights and densities in its MTSA and that are existing on the site to the rest of the neighborhood in the broader area. Next slide, please. Given that it's our opinion that the site can function as a transition area, the Crown Jewel has submitted an application to permit a 7-story mid-rise building on the lands. The building height is really focused on the Bramley frontage here, where the 7-story and the tallest height is directed. From there, the building heights step down on each story until you get to the furthest west property line where you see the building steps down to 2 stories, which is adjacent to the existing residential dwellings in the west end of the site. This building height also complies with the principle of a 45-degree angular plane when measured from the shared property lines. The terrace building heights was employed to reduce any impact to the adjacent residential dwellings in the neighborhoods. In addition, it provides building heights that's compatible with the residential and neighborhood, and it also provides that upward transition that we talked about in terms of built form. At this time, the proposed unit count is 54 units, which consists of a range of 1, 2, and 2-bedroom plus den units. And the development is supported by 1 level of underground parking with 52 parking spaces. And access to the site is proposed from Avondale Boulevard. Next slide, please. There's a couple technical considerations and comments from the public that I just wanted to spend a minute addressing. In terms of technical consideration, the staff report notes that as part of the application process, we're going to continue to review the proposed massing relative to the impacts created on the surrounding lands. It's our opinion that the proposed site location in a gateway mobility hub and being sandwiched between high-density residential development to the immediate south and the low-density residential to the north and west results in the site functioning as this transition area. It's our opinion that a mid-rise building is appropriate and it's an appropriate built form for the lands. In addition, as I just described, the building height terracing in the compliance with the 45-degree angular plane ensures that built form and massing respects the surrounding land uses. In addition, there was the submission of a sun and shadow study that was provided to the city staff as part of the application, which demonstrates that there's no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties. Next slide, please. The last item I wanted to address is comments we received from the public on the application, and they generally respond to comments with respect to lot size and proximity to neighboring houses, traffic and parking issues, and concerns with water and wastewater and servicing. As part of the application submission, Crown Jewel has filed several reports and plans which address these items, among others. And they've provided planning justification report, a transportation report, as well as a functional servicing report. To respond to the issue of lot size, it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's my opinion that the built form and massing that's proposed for the site is compatible with the function as it acts as a transition from the high density to the immediate south to the neighboring residential units. The proposed massing and built form is also representative of a more urban built form, which is being developed elsewhere in the city using urbanized standards. With respect to comments on traffic and parking, there was a traffic report that was filed as part of this application, which concludes that all the intersections are expected to continue to perform at acceptable operating levels, and that the proposed development will have negligible impact on the intersection of Bramley and Avondale Road. Lastly, and one interesting point is that this area actually has a high non-automotive modal split in the area, which indicates that residents are actually using the extensive transit services that are available in this area. This higher than average dependency on transit makes the proposed development a good candidate for a reduced parking supply. And lastly, in response to concerns raised with respect to water and wastewater servicing capacity, there was a functional servicing report that was completed and demonstrates that there is sufficient capacity within existing services along Avondale Boulevard to support this planned development. But as we continue to move through the development application review process, we'll continue to work with city staff to ensure that these items and any additional comments are addressed to the city's satisfaction. Next slide. So with that, I will conclude my presentation, and I am available to answer any questions that council or the public may have.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see anyone on the board, and I believe City Clerk, we have a delegation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we have Michelle Drenters. Michelle, we're going to unmute your mic because we can't pull you in as a panelist on WebEx, so you should be unmuted now, and you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I submitted my concerns, and I'm not sure why they're not captured in the document that was in the amended agenda, but I will say my concerns are mostly dealing with the traffic, and I respectfully disagree with the previous presenter on her assurance that this will not negatively impact the congestion and the supply for parking that is needed in the area. You're assuming that this proposed building is going to only need 52 parking spots. I can tell you that from speaking with people who have relatives that live in the 2 condos that are south of this proposed building, that they don't have sufficient parking there, and it took up to a year for them to get even 1 spot. And from there, all those people who don't have parking will park on Avondale or any of the adjacent outlying streets, anything closest to where they can find parking. I can tell you right now, I've witnessed it myself, people parking in the plaza down the street at Avondale. Shoppers Drug Mart's there. Also there across from Shoppers Drug Mart, there's a Lions Hall. So people are going to be overflowing parking there. And then we're going to run into lots of congestion as well. I would suggest that when you're trying to get in access into the parking or into the site itself from Avondale, as you mentioned, there's only the one driveway, or that's the one means of getting into the space. It's very short distance from the actual intersection at Bramley and Avondale. And when people are waiting to turn in there, especially during times when there's high traffic, such as rush hour and things like that, you're going to have things backed up like crazy. So that's my concern as well. You're also going to run into issues with people parking and garbage clearing and snow clearing, because if they can't find anywhere else to park, they're going to be parking on the street. And what I'd like to know is, as well, is the city prepared to, if this becomes the case, are they prepared to have their bylaw officers on a regular basis monitor this area and tag and ticket all of those cars that are parked illegally past a 3-hour limit and overnight? That's pretty well my concern. It's basically the lack of parking, and in my personal opinion, I live in the area, and I can't see how you can fit that size of a building into less than a half of an acre and not run into issues. There's been many proposals that have been made for that site over the past 20 years. I'm a longtime resident of the area, and none of them have gone to fruition because of the fact that it's such a small area. So thanks for listening, and hopefully you'll take my concerns into consideration.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, Michelle, just to verify that your comments through your correspondence are part of the package that's before committee tonight as item 11.2. There's a number of pieces of correspondence, including yours. Mr. Chair, so that concludes the delegations.
When I opened up the document itself, it's blank. So I'm not sure if it's somewhere else, but I just wanted to just flag that just in case.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that may be your delegation form may be blank that we're looking into, but I think your correspondence that you submitted is published online, as I do see it.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Okay. And through you, Mr. Chair, there is a number of pieces of correspondence identified as item 11.2 for consideration with this item.
Okay, thank you very much. So I do not see any questions of clarification from members of the committee. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini to move the staff report recommendations, applicant delegation, and correspondence. Is there anyone opposed? I see none. So this motion carries, and statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. Our next item is item 5.3, and it's application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, Glen, Schneider and Associates. And I believe now it's in Ward 6, and I will hand it over to Jenny Lee from the Building and Economic Development Department. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and the public. My name is Kelly Lee, and I am the planner assigned to process and review this application with Churchill. Please note that the committee will not make a decision today. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public, seek feedback on the application filed by Fletcher and Associates, prepared on behalf of people from the 203 Ontario River. Next slide, please. The subject land is located in Ward 6 on the west side of McLaughlin Road and north of Boulevard Drive West, with frontage onto McLaughlin Road. The land has a total area of approximately 0.32 hectares, 0.79. Site is currently vacant. Next slide. Surrounding land uses include commercial land uses with businesses and professional services, as well as commercial and industrial services to the north, opposite of the farmland. Low-density residential dwellings to the south, and further south of that, commercial. Industrial and commercial buildings, being furniture, textiles, manufacturing, and open natural areas attributed to the tributary of Fletcher Creek and multi-use trail to the south. Mentioned at the beginning, this is an application for official plan amendment in Bylaw. I will describe the details of the application in this public. Next. The proposal includes a 9-story residential building with 120 units of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. The proposal also includes 31 units of 2 floors for total of 127 parking spaces, surface and underground, including 105 for residents and 2 visitor parking for accessible. Access to servants and loading areas are provided from the southern portion of the site via the right in, right out from the northern side. The surface parking access to the low-grade parking on the eastern entrance of the site. Total landscape area of 1,250. Total amenity area proposes 526 square. That includes outdoor amenity area and indoor amenity. The proposed development is located adjacent to the Natural Heritage System, associated with Fletcher's Creek, the watershed of Credit River water, located immediately south and west of the subject property. A 5-meter environmental buffer is proposed from the state top bank and 10-meter buffer from the limits of the adjacent significant woodland. Next slide, please. The slide that you see on the screen is the rendering submitted by the applicant at this time. I want to note this application will be presented to the city's Urban Design Review Panel on January 25th, 2022, which design and build form will be discussed. Next slide, please. The subject land is designated residential on Schedule A. The designation permits the proposed residential uses, and amendment to the official plan is not required. Furthermore, the subject land is located on the secondary intensification corridor and are generally planned to accommodate intense mixed-use development designed to achieve a floor space index of 1.0 over the entire intensification corridor, within buildings 2 to 8 stories in height. Next slide, please. The Fletcher's Meadow Area 44 secondary plan designate the property as medium cluster high density residential. An amendment to the secondary plan is required. The net density for this designation shall not exceed 124 units per hectare, and the proposed development has a net density of 465 units per net hectare. Next slide, please. The subject land is zoned Commercial 1 Special Section 1045, which permits various commercial uses, include retail, office, day nursery, and restaurants. An amendment to the zoning bylaw will be required to permit this development. Next slide, please. At this time, staff has noted these issues that will need to be addressed. Number 1, confirmation is required regarding the status of the vacant land parcel that is pending sale approval from the city, and whether that is part of the development proposal. Number 2, Potential encroachment on the 5-meter environmental buffer as the proposed building and parking ramp are placed immediately adjacent to the 5-meter buffer, leaving little space to enable access to the rear of the building and the parking ramp without the need to encroach into the buffer. Number 3, staff have identified a shortage in parking supply. Appropriateness of the reduction in parking will be evaluated through the application review process. Lastly, from an economic development perspective, rather than removing office daycare use permissions from the zoning bylaw, further consideration will be given to potentially maintaining the office and daycare uses as part of the site's future development. There is a demand in childcare facilities in the city, and in terms of office, both the vacancy rate and total inventory in Brampton is low. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Regional Peel official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan. Next slide, please. Staff will continue the review of the application, including review comments from the public, internal staffs, and external agencies. Staff will, at a later date, advance the final recommendation report to Council for a decision. Issues that have been raised by internal staffs, external agencies, and the public will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have provided comments through all channels. Next slide, please. The report and submitted materials associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be posted on the city's website for review. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to City Clerk to administer the delegations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we do have present Colin Chung from Glen, Schneider & Associates, should there be any questions of the applicant. But we have 4 delegations that have pre-registered. The first is Harmeet Walia. Harmeet, welcome to the meeting. You have up to 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to point out that all the concerns that Jenny already have identified are all the valid ones that we as a neighborhood have also looked into. We stay on Marycroft, which is right next to where this proposed building is, and it's a court. There is not much parking space. It's difficult to re-emphasize how much the problem we are facing right now. So even without this, on a given day, we always have issues finding parking spots if a guest arrives. The situation is so worse that a lot of times, even on the waste day, our garbage doesn't get picked because there's a vehicle which is parked next to it. That's the biggest thing. And the other part is that with the kids, we do not even have a close walking distance park. So with all these new buildings coming up with the high story, it will be difficult to accommodate that. Now, I want to say that it's not that I'm against this whole condo thing. All I'm asking for, or probably the whole neighborhood is asking for, if we can, negotiate somewhere that the height of this building can be dropped down to a reasonable level, which will not overflow things like parking or probably, something like that. So that's what few of my major concerns.
Thank you, Harmeet. The next delegate is Payal Mehta. Payal, welcome to the meeting. You have up to 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you so much. So first, just to give you a quick background, we live right at the corner of McLaughlin and where the building has been proposed to be built. So 2 of our walls, which is our entrance and our backyard, both of them are going to be affected by the building. I totally don't mind, like we as a family or we as a community don't mind to have a 3-story building, which the city has already permitted for, and the daycares that Jenny just mentioned are really great to have because there are massive wait lists whenever you want to register your kid for daycare. So 3-story buildings is not an issue at all. But when it comes to 9-story buildings, we do have concerns. Both, one is our invasion of privacy. If there is going to be a barbecue area that is going to be built as per the plan right behind our backyard, so that that's a lot. Like, one, there's privacy concerns. 2, fire accidents can happen. There's a huge chance of because of food wastage. raccoons or any animals from the green space can come into our backyards. That is one of our issues. And in terms of, both of our backyard and our entrance, because our entrance is on the side, are going to be, affected by this new building. Security is a big issue, because right now, if you look at the green patch where, the city still needs to give a permission to the builder. That is one of the patches where the kids play right now, and that's the only green space for the kids, as Hermeet just mentioned. So if that is built into, if that's an extension of the outdoor amenity space that, the builder wants to build, that's another concern, because if people are sitting there all day long and, we can't even enjoy our side entrance. We can't enjoy our backyard because the building is going to be 9-story. And in terms of privacy, we don't know how the windows or the balconies are going to be in that building. And, day in and day out, we are always going to be afraid of people looking into our backyards. And since everything is around us are low buildings, or nothing is higher than a 3-story, it's going to be very uncomfortable for us as well. And in terms of the service parking entrance B, that is going to also be like right behind our backyard. 24/7, there are going to be traffic. There's going to be visitors visiting that building, the people in that building, and utility vehicles or ambulances or all of those so all of that traffic is also going to increase. So we are also concerned about the traffic. We are already facing a huge, traffic because of the plaza right behind, on the south side of McLaughlin and also across us. We do face a lot of traffic issues, and now having that building, it's going to cause a lot more traffic problems around for us. So that's pretty much it. That's what I would like to say, and hopefully the builder considers our community concerns.
Thank you. The next registered delegate was Gyozo Alvedi, but we don't see Gyozo in tonight's session, so we're going to move on to Tony Farah. Tony, welcome to tonight's meeting. You have up to 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you to my previous neighbors that just spoke before me. Thank you, guys. I think you did great. And they really do speak for all of us, I would say, because as a street, we all discussed this together. So I just wanted to reiterate the fact that my neighbor said that we are not opposed to more housing in the area. On the opposite, we encourage it. We think it's really smart. We realize that more housing is needed in the GTA. It's just the fact that it's 9 stories right beside our houses. We think it's a little bit too much, and I have some reasons that I will reinforce and some new ones I'll bring up as well. So basically, our community is basically 2 streets. It's Marycroft Court and Tremor, and we have about 150 units total of these townhomes. And this 9-story building will basically almost double our population overnight, because it's 120 units in this entire building. We think that's a bit much. It's a little bit too much too soon, and we don't think that's really appropriate. If I can go over the parking issue again, the reason why the parking is such an issue, Marycroft, we're not allowed parking on one side of the street. This is not a normal width size street where you can have parking on both sides. It's actually quite narrow, and there's no parking signs on one side for the entire length of the street, including Tremor. So what happens is if people do try to park on both sides, we have an issue where I've actually called parking services myself, that emergency vehicles wouldn't be able to make it through should there be an emergency. An ambulance or something like a fire truck would not be able to make it around. And obviously that's not appropriate. So that's actually a safety concern, I think. This building is proposed 127 parking spots for 120 residential units. I find that weird. As per City of Brampton bylaws, it's supposed to be minimum 131 spots, as per the RO traffic impact study by Paradigm Transportation Solutions. But it looks like the developer is trying to get around this rule by designating 31 of the condos as senior living. That's because senior living condos get less parking spot than a regular condo. They only get 0.61 spots. So obviously, I think the calculation was made here just based on space available. And they figured, well, we'll just make some of these senior condos. So I would love to know what guarantee the developer can provide that these 31 condos would be sold, in fact, to seniors. How will the developer guarantee that only seniors with no cars will only ever occupy these units in perpetuity? I don't see how that's going to happen. If this is just on the free market, I don't really understand that myself. I understand that the city of Brampton and everywhere in the GTA, we're working to reduce the amount of SOV, single occupant vehicles on the road. And this is probably the best idea ever. That's the only way we're going to alleviate the traffic situation for sure, right? But what ends up happening is, in the meantime, before that happens, people do need somewhere to place their cars. And people need to get to work. And a lot of homes these days are so expensive, you need dual income homes in order to afford any condo or house or townhouse, whatever it may be. So the reason why parking is such an issue, you see, we have a Good Life Fitness just to the south of us, on the south end of Marycroft. And funny, because people don't want to walk further to park their car into the parking lot, so they'll park on Marycroft where it's closer. And we're afraid that with that already being occupied on the south side of our street, on the north side, the nearest residential parking is, in fact, our residential street, which people in the condos might think is their overflow parking. This is why we think it's such an issue in our area. And one more thing, the traffic study was completed in November 2020, the pandemic year, when a lot of people have been working from home and traffic levels dropped significantly. I would love to know why the traffic study was completed at a time when there was obviously less traffic on the road. Perhaps we can get an updated traffic study just to make sure that everything is above board here. Maybe that would be a good idea. And what else do we have here? Something that one of my neighbors has already mentioned, that the kids in the neighborhood, we are lacking in any playground or park facilities for our children. We're wondering if the 8-meter wide patch bordering 110 Marycroft and McLaughlin could be negotiated to be used for public space. This is all I have for now. If anybody has any questions, I'm available.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that concludes the 4 registered delegates for this evening. We also have correspondence identified under 11.3 from various people in regard to this item.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions of clarification from members of the committee. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Willens.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Councillor Willens declared a conflict. He can't be. He's not involved in this.
My apologies. So I'll
I'm happy to move in his absence.
Who is that?
Councillor Bowman. I'm happy to move in his
absence. Okay. So motion moved by Councillor Bowman to move the motion taken as read and accept the delegations and correspondence. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. We now go to public delegations, and our first item is item 6.1 regarding application to amend the zoning bylaw, Ward 8. I do know we have many delegations, so I'll hand it over to you, City Clerk, to administer the delegations.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just as we begin the delegations, I believe there are 13 that were registered. We do see some people in the attendee list that have identified themselves as by a municipal address or a concerned resident. We do ask that we need your delegation or your registration by your first and last name for the WebEx session. So if you are a delegate for this item, please leave and rejoin with your proper identification included. That way we know that you're in the session. Otherwise, we will call your name, but we have no way of knowing that you're in the session, and we'll move on to the next delegate. So we have a number of people that have requested to speak to this item. This is item 7.6, an application to amend the zoning bylaw. Blackthorne Development Corporation to permit a pet crematorium use with an enclosed mezzanine at 34-2500 Williams Parkway, west of Humber Crest Parkway, north of Williams Parkway in Ward 8. I will go through the delegation list. First, we have a delegation from Sukhpreet Nahal. Sukhpreet, you should be in the session, and you can unmute your mic, and you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Please proceed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sukhpreet Nahal, and I am speaking on behalf of my father, Ratan Nahal. He is the owner of units 44 and 45 at 2500 Williams Parkway, where the proposal to open this pet crematorium is being made. And he also owns units 10 and 11 at 2051 Williams Parkway, which is located directly across the street. So we have many concerns about this proposal, along with majority of the other owners and tenants of the neighboring units that are in the vicinity of Unit 34, where this pet crematorium is proposed to be opened. So primarily, the application to amend the zoning bylaws and permit the operation of a pet crematorium is against the current zone permissions of this property. The M3-1513 zone applies to Unit 34, and this application for amendment would completely change this zone designation, and the developer has not provided sufficient details on their requirements and restrictions in relation to what this altered designation would entail. And in addition to this, changing the zone designation of the entire property at 2500 Williams Parkway, this proposal has also garnered multiple other concerns by neighboring owners and tenants. This includes the fact that the neighboring units predominantly consists of many manufacturing and industrial businesses, along with a dance studio, a restaurant, and a daycare. All of these businesses constantly have walk-in customers, which directly contributes to their profit and income. The number of walk-in customers that they may receive will decrease significantly with the associated negative stigma of having a pet crematorium directly in the property. These businesses also consistently have their front and back doors open for the purpose of walk-in customers, customers coming to pick up their completed orders, or customers that are arriving to ask questions or check on the status of their orders. So as such, it wouldn't be possible for these businesses to avoid the operations of this crematorium, especially those that are right across or beside Unit 34. And I don't think it would resonate well with customers to purchase products or services from a business that would involve them having to constantly visit a place that is near a crematorium when they're replacing or picking up their order. These businesses have already been suffering financially due to the COVID pandemic, and the fear of losing more customers is just way too stressful for them, which is why we're all voicing our concerns. And in addition to this, we're also concerned about the disposal practices and operational practices that will be conducted when operating this crematorium. The developer hasn't made attempts to outline this information, and we're concerned about waste management, excessive noise, biohazardous fumes, air quality, increased odors, and parking issues. All of these issues will have a direct impact on the number of customers that will feel comfortable bringing their business to any of the neighboring units. And the developer has not made a sufficient attempt to detail how they'll handle any of these issues. They have stated that their operational practices will follow ministry standards, but no other information has been provided, and we are still fearful about it. And we also are concerned about the negative emotions that will be generated with the pet crematorium being present on this property. Even though the operations will be conducted inside the unit and will not be witnessed externally, we will still have to witness families coming in with their deceased pets. These diseased pets may be medicated, they may have illnesses and diseases that have caused their deaths, and all of this will be released into the air, which again contributes to the poor air quality that may be generated. And since I mentioned earlier, since the businesses constantly have their front and back doors open, it would be unavoidable for them to not witness this or ignore this or to see grieving families. And that also relates to the negative emotions that our employees will be feeling in addition to any customers that are on site at the time. And we also have multiple petitions that have been signed by the owners and tenants of neighboring units, with everyone disagreeing with the operation and the application to amend the zoning bylaw. A pet crematorium simply isn't an ideal fit for this specific property due to the many industrial small businesses in the vicinity, as well as the daycare, a restaurant, and the dance studio. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next registered delegate is Gurpreet Singh Deo, but Gurpreet does not seem to be present in the meeting, so I'll move on. The next registered delegate is Milton Leite. Milton does not appear to be present, so we'll move on to the next person, Simranjeet Bajaj, and I don't think Simranjeet is present. So the next delegation is Manjit Singh Sahota. Manjit is present, and Manjit, you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. So I believe Manjit is no longer in the session, Mr. Chair, so we'll move on to the next registered delegate, which was Frank.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, Peter Manjit is by first name in the participant list. I can unmute his mic.
Yes, please. Thanks, Tammy.
Yes, he's now unmuted.
Go ahead, Manjit.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, all the councillors. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak to on behalf of all the unit holders. And I am also holding the unit in this plaza. So we are pretty much concerned about this amending the bylaws for the pet cremation center into the plaza, because we have got mostly the three concerns here. Like first is the environmental issue here, because all of the buildings here, all around the buildings are the carpentry shops. So which is a safety hazards and which is a fire hazards, like doing a big ovens here inside the building. But it prohibits like running the carpentry shop, which can cause fire in terms of in the future. And secondly, mainly is the environmental issue, because we got a nearby our like the dance school in the pretty hotel. We got a restaurants here, so we are mostly concerned about, because in the pet cremation center, like this will be coming with the infected dogs or something with the bad medications on that one. That will be polluted to the air, so which is not a healthy sign for the health side. So I just damnly condemn to this decision, and I oppose this decision to get the pet cremation center into this building. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next registered delegates were Frank Geraldine and Bhupinder Rupre. Neither of them are present, so we'll move on to the next registered delegate, which is Sandeep Bassi. Sandeep, we do see you present in the meeting. We can bring you in, or Tammy, can you unmute Sandeep's mic? And Sandeep, you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Please proceed. So Sandeep, you can unmute your mic now. There we go.
Yes, I can do.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Please proceed.
Thank you for giving me time. Sorry, I'm having a problem.
Oh, we can hear you, Sandeep.
Sorry for the interrupt. Okay, my name is Sandeep. I'm the owner of unit number 33, right next to the unit number 34, where the pet cremation going to be. My main concern about the safety for my building and for my business as well. What we do here, we build custom kitchens, and we are using a paint booth, which we are using high flammable stuff. So with that, I think if because it's going to be burner right next to my wall, and I feel like it could be dangerous for whole building. So that's my main concern. Also, it's not gonna be good for my showroom or any business around here. For as a walk-in customer we have, so that's the thing. Thank you.
Thank you. The next delegation is from Brian Ganesh. Brian, you are in the session. You can unmute your mic and you have up to 5 minutes. Please proceed. So Brian, you can unmute your mic and then you can address the committee. There you go. So Brian, we're not hearing you at the moment, but I do see your microphone is unmuted. So Mr. Chair, we'll just give a moment for to see if Brian can resolve their microphone issue. So Tammy, I'm going to suggest you please mute Brian, and we're going to move on to the next delegate, which is Gurtej Singh Mathuru. Gurtej, you can unmute your mic and you can address the committee. You have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Gurtej. I have a unit in this area. My unit number is 20. My unit back is towards the back of the same unit. As the first speaker said, that because of this pet crematorium, because of this pet cremation center, it will be very difficult for us to open the back doors, because all my customers, which they come from the back side of the door, because I have a small machine shop here, and all my raw material that comes, it comes through the back side. All my customers who come, they come from the back side. And because of this new proposed business, it will be very difficult for us to open the back door. And also there will be chances that there will be bad smell and all of other things. And and there are other so many things happening around this area. Like there are dance studio around. There's a healthcare like business just across this building, and there's a food business. So we are totally against this business opening over here, and we are totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to Brian. Brian, can you just unmute your mic and we'll try to make sure that your audio is working? So Brian, I see that you've unmuted your mic, but we're still not hearing anything. So Mr. Chair, I'm going to suggest we move on. We did have 3 additional registered delegates, Tony Mehta, who's not present, and then Naber Sani and Harachin Ganesh and Lila Ganesh, and neither of those delegates are present. So that concludes the delegations on this item, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Peter. I do see that there are speakers, members of the committee who would like to speak, and I will hand it over to first Councillor Dillon. And just as a reminder for everyone, we do have the planner for the applicant who is here for any questions, Mr. Rugado from Blackthorne. I will hand it over to you, Mr. Dillon. Go ahead.
Thank you. And so I'm familiar with the application. There's a few, excuse me, a few issues that I think were outlined by some of the unit owners. And I think the fact that many of them never received notice of the public meeting, I think is very concerning. There were a couple meetings that we did have with some of the unit owners that were familiar with me. And I think Councillor Singh was there as well. And I believe Councillor Fortini was able to speak to them. And I think, there's significant concerns because there's going to be concerns of environmental pollution, of smell, of various other, things that are going to affect some of these business owners. They've been there for, a number of them have been there for many years.
So just a reminder, Councillor Dillon, you have to, these are questions. Do you want to ask a question on some of that stuff, or are you just?
No, we're not speaking to the report.
No, I'll bring the report up now. My apologies. So we're speaking to the report, and you can continue. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So the delegations are complete though, right?
Yep, that's great.
Right, and so just speaking to the report, I don't think I can support it. I've listened to the concerns of the unit owners. They're significant, they're great in nature, and I think it'll negatively affect them. And I think each one has stated what those concerns are indeed. And I think they're relevant and they will definitely affect them negatively. And so I cannot support the recommendation. And I look forward to what my fellow colleagues have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Fortini.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question. I understand what everyone are saying, and I did talk to some of them. Is there anyone that delegated tonight on the board? None of them sit on the board? That's my first question. My other one, how many units is there here at total on this plaza? I couldn't remember if it was 33 or 38. Can staff tell me?
Through Mr. Chair, Alan Parsons here, Director of Development Services. Unfortunately, through Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Fortini, I don't know the exact number. I would, though, just given the size of the site, suspect that it's approximately 30 or so units. I'm curious if either Maurizio or Regato might be able to speak to that and confirm the number of units within the subject site here.
Okay. Is there so we sent a letter to the Condo Corp. Do we send a letter to the units, or do we send it to the Condo Corp, and it's the Condo Corp's responsibility to inform the tenants or the owners?
Yeah, through Mr. Chairman, Alan Parsons here again. So I'm understanding from the staff that have put out the public notices previously, and now responded back to those that were interested in the application, that the notice goes out to each of the unit holders.
Okay, and the Condo Corp was okay. They must have a board to sit on this unit. All townhouses or condos, there's always like a board. They must okay this for them to purchase this unit. Was there any letter, Alan?
Yeah, and through Mr. Chairman, perhaps I can ask that either Steve Ganish, the manager for the item, or Andrew Ramsamy can speak to some of the background that we're familiar with. I'm generally understanding that there was an understanding between the condo board and the unit holder here that there was some permissions that they would grant to allow the operation to occur here within the site, if it was that zoning permissions were ultimately granted. I believe there was some information that staff generally understood within a purchase and sale agreement, but I can't speak to those details right now, Councillor. Again, perhaps this is a matter, a set of details that Maurizio Regato might be able to speak to.
Yeah, and my other one was, who issues the license? Is it us or is the province through the environmental?
Again, through you, Mr. Chairman. So staff, within the review of all the technical matters, we've come to understand through our environmental engineering group that really purview of the technical analysis relating to air quality and noise does rest with the Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks, and that really the environmental compliance that was created here has been reviewed and approved by the province to allow the use permission to occur here on the site, provided that zoning compliance is also given by the municipality.
Yeah, and so I know we had already 2 meetings on this in the past, and no one showed up. So that's why I was kind of worried that they get the invite. I know the Condo Corp did, and it usually should be the Condo Corp to inform everyone, but you're saying that everyone received the letter, which is good. I wish they came out way before. Anyway, I'll listen to what my councilors colleagues have to say. I know this person spent a lot of money, and if the license is issued by the province, then I wish the delegations would have come earlier. And the Condo Corp should have informed all the tenants. They're responsible at the end. And I feel bad for these people. They pay condo fees, TMI, they pay all this stuff, and then they don't even know about it. Anyway, I'll listen to what my colleagues have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh.
I'll go after Councillor Williams. I'd like to hear comments as well as the area councillor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Through the chair, just I heard you say, Alan, that the province has approved the environmentals for this use. And I just wanted to know, when we look at these industrial areas, what are usually the appropriate uses for these spaces? And does this business fit under that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Williams, and through you again, Mr. Chair. With respect to the designation of the site, the site is designated within the secondary plan as industrial. And given the industrial designation, it's really intended that that industrial designation includes these types of uses generally. There's quite a wide range of industrial uses that are identified within the secondary plan. It is, though, that not all of the industrial uses are spoken to within the zoning bylaw as well, though, and rather there is typically a zoning bylaw is identified or identifies the intended uses of the developer at the time. And so we would have identified within the zoning bylaw all of those uses that were intended when it originally developed. But the secondary plan and the industrial designation contained within it does contemplate the pet crematorium use as well. Here we see that with this application, it does only require an amendment to the zoning bylaw itself. Trying to recall your other question, Councillor, but I think it related to the environmental compliance relating to the province. And yes, it is the province that reviews the environmental compliance approval here as it relates to noise and air quality.
Thank you, Alan. So I hear you saying that the types of uses that are appropriate for this industrial area, this business does fit under that. So why do these industrial areas approve things like churches or daycare centers then?
Yeah, and through you, Councillor, and through you, Chair, it is a careful matter that staff has to review when it comes to allowing other types of uses, so being places of worship and potentially daycares or potentially schools. I can't speak to really all of the planning that was done over the history of the city and some approvals that really had occurred really at that point in time. But more recently, in particular, I'll speak to the fact that there is really a big consideration that we always have for really any more sensitive uses that are trying to find their way into finding a home within an industrial area. Wherever that is, we always try to ensure and follow up with our environmental staff and our policy staff to understand that we're not going to be inhibiting really the proper development of the industrial area, because we do find that as soon as there is a more sensitive use that finds its way into an industrial area, it could very well impact the ability for any operation to enjoy some of the intense uses that they require for their operations. So staff are very cognizant of those types of things now in particular, and always wary of making any providing any support for that type of more sensitive use in these areas.
Well, I think that's kind of contributes to the issue that we're in. If an area like this is better suited for things like this crematorium, it's an industrial area, but then we have different other allowances for uses that are more softer in nature. It makes it difficult to reinforce these changes. And so I wonder if there's something overarching. I guess this is me looking at the bigger picture around our policies to make sure we're a bit more stringent when it comes to applications that are set for industrial areas, making sure that these corporations, they know that if we have other uses that come in, then there isn't the safeguards to prevent them. Because right now it's provincially supported. Right now, this type of use is appropriate for this area because it is, and then it really kind of puts us in a position. So I'm going to keep listening to what the other councillors have to say about this, but I think it really just put us in an awkward situation, knowing that this business owner put in their application in an area that is appropriate for this type of business and has invested quite a bit of money to do this. And I understand where the residents and the other business owners are frustrated because they're not thinking that it doesn't seem to fit. You know what I mean? They're saying a crematorium in a space where I have other businesses, it doesn't seem to fit. So I understand the frustration that residents are coming with. However, the zoning requirements and the policies do allow for this type of use. So I feel like, our hands are kind of tied with this one. But I'll continue to listen to what the other councillors have to say and then make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I also had an opportunity with Councillor Dillon to attend what's called to a meeting in between our budget. I really hear the concerns of the members of the Condo Corp. There's been, according to them specifically, a lack of transparency on this, a lack of notifications, which, add to some of the issues regarding this site. Also the appropriateness, there's like restaurants and stuff like that very close by in the plazas across the street, place of worship uses. So we're actually looking at a lot of sensitive uses that this will be adjacent to. So personally, I can't support it. After meeting the Condo Corp members, I hear their concerns, and I was able to see with my own eyes the issues. Sometimes we don't see it when we read the reports, and I will be voting not in favor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further speakers, so I will move that the chair be heard. I have some questions. I'd actually like to hear from the planner for the applicant, Mr. Rugato. A couple of questions I have. So just for clarification, we did get staff speak to first some of these issues from the delegations were around, I guess, issues that pertain to the Ministry of Environment. So if you can speak to that. The second one is just regarding, notices. Folks say that they didn't receive notices. And maybe is there anything that you'd like to add that you think is important for our consideration as committee members?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for calling upon me. To members of committee, gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity to address committee on this matter, and I'd like to start off by saying my client secured the approval of the condominium board prior to applying for the zoning bylaw amendment, and your policies, by the way, at the City of Brampton are extremely robust when it comes to these sorts of uses, wherein a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment is required before such a use can be entertained. And the reason for that is when it comes to matters of odor, air quality, environmental hazard matters, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks is the jurisdiction and has the authority on it. And as you've heard earlier, the ministry has issued their approval. It's approval number 2846. That approval is 16 pages of conditions, wherein my client has to continuously test and retest the operation to ensure that there are no odor impacts, no air pollution impacts. So, my client undertook extreme due diligence, has located this use in an appropriate area in accordance with your official plan, has advanced a site-specific zoning bylaw that came with air pollution, air quality studies, noise reports, planning reports, and the ministry, prior to issuing their certificate of approval, is aware of the surrounding area. And if I may, to answer a few of Councillor Fortini's questions, it's six buildings, multi-unit buildings, 59 units, and every unit owner did receive notice. My client went out of their way, again, prior to applying to secure the approval of the condominium board. We all want to be good neighbors, and I think my client even owns one of the adjacent units that's occupied by a business. So she wants to be fully supportive of businesses continuing to succeed in the area. The ministry does as well. And I don't believe the ministry would have issued a certification of approval had they found that this operation or use in itself would cause any environmental hazard or health hazard of any kind. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to address committee this evening. The last thing I'll say is this use is fundamentally a community need. There's currently nowhere for pet owners to take their pets in a dignified manner during their last moments. And in this situation, we have an opportunity at the city to ensure that pet owners can deal with these very difficult times in a dignified manner. This isn't a situation where there's going to be cremation in the open or it would be observed. This is going to be carried out in a very dignified, safe manner, and the ministries recognize that. And in doing so, they've imposed severe conditions onto my client. So, you know, all the unit owners that are concerned, while I appreciate their concerns, they have recourse. And that recourse is to contact the ministry during the operation, should there be any issues. But I assure you that my client's been tasked with extraordinary conditions. In Ontario, we are heavily regulated and licensed. These sorts of uses do not just pop up. And I'm cognizant of Councillor Williams' comments about, you know, the interface of land uses. And that's how planning all started at the turn of the century. We were worried about health issues arising with industrial proximity to sensitive land uses. This has all been sourced out through this robust review. And again, the ministry who has jurisdiction over these matters has issued their approval. And this evening, I'm respectfully going to ask committee to allow this much needed community use to be advanced in our city in a safe manner, the way the ministry is recognized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can staff confirm that this would be the first pet crematorium in Brampton? And I find it, I did get that confirmation before, but just for the public record, I don't have pets myself, but I do find it amazing that unfortunately Brampton residents have to take their pets out of city to other cities to get this service or to access a pet crematorium and sort of deal with it in this sensitive manner. So I was amazed by that fact. Is there anyone on staff that can confirm that that is the case?
Through the chair, Steve Ganisher, Manager of Development Services. To my knowledge and staff's knowledge, this would be the first privately owned pet crematorium. I did some research prior to tonight's meeting, and I believe the city's Municipal Animal Services also offers a similar service, but perhaps not to the extent as being put forth in tonight's proposal. Also, if I may, through you, the chair, just to clarify, in terms of there was some discussion around public notification and proper notice, just for the purpose of tonight's meeting and those listening in. Public notice by way of sign, as we do with all of our development applications, was erected on the site on August 19th. A mail out to all property owners and tenants within 240 meters of the unit was conducted on August 17th, and then notice of the proposal for the first public meeting was published in the Brampton Guardian on August 19th. So I just thought it was important for those listening in to have for the tonight's record.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess just finally, I do see other speaker, but I think from the information that we have, and I do like the fact that there is recourse if during the operations that some of the adjacent owners, if they want to make complaints directly to the Ministry of Environment, they have that option, and obviously they have their local MPP if they feel that there are issues that are not being addressed. And certainly the city is always there and local councillors to support them. But I don't see why we wouldn't support it. And I think it's one of these tough ones that, you know, I understand being in another ward. It's probably easier as we're not or I'm not an owner adjacent to this business. I can understand where residents would feel some apprehension. But ultimately, We've done our due diligence. We followed all the procedures, and the fact that Ministry of Environment is very rigorous in their system of checks and balances and permissions, I will be supporting this business, and not from the also perspective of the fact that I do find it in a city like Brampton, such a large population that we don't have. I was surprised to find that we don't have this existing business, and I'm sure this will be unfortunately, or pending on your view, that this will be a business much needed in the city of Brampton. So I will be supporting this. Thank you very much. I now will go on to the next person on the board, Councillor Fortini.
Very quickly, and that was good questions. I'm just going to ask to staff, who regulates or who does the checkup on these things if everything's done right through the environmental or what the provincial access? Is it us or is it the province?
Through the chair, Steve Ganis here, it would be the province that does their regular sort of checkups on the compliance of the owner's machinery that's operating. And as the owner's planning consultant indicated, that there is a recourse for those tenants in the building should they find any obnoxious odor, smells, and whatnot, that they could follow up with the province on regulation going forward.
So the other question is, do we have a letter from the Condo Corp? What did they say? We have a letter for approval?
Through the chair, upon receipt of the application by staff, it became aware or known to staff that the owner who purchased the property of tonight's subject application has secured, I guess, written approval of some kind from the Condo Corp as part of the purchase and sale agreement, but I don't have the details of that.
Yeah, very disappointing that the Condo Corp didn't let these people know, and very disappointed. Other area councillors had meetings, and myself and Councillor Charmaine didn't know about it. This is a hard thing, and I understand what these residents are doing. They like to keep the back door open, get fresh air, the summer, and they're kind of all worried about it, but it's a provincial thing, and I'll see how the vote goes, and again, I wish I was part of those meetings. It looked like myself and Councillor Charmaine Williams didn't know nothing about it, and it looks like, anyway, I'll let it go there, but I'll see what any other discussions on the board. Thank you.
Okay, I see no further speakers, so I guess City Clerk, I'm happy to move the report, and I'll ask for a recorded vote, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So you're moving the staff recommendations as shown on the screen, plus a receipt of the delegations, those that did attend and participate. So on item 7.6, a recorded vote has been requested on the motion as shown on the screen. All in favor, please indicate. Councillor Santos. Councillor Santos. I'll come back to you. Councillor Vicente.
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Willens.
Yes.
It's a yes. Councillor Bowman.
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Fortini. Councillor Fortini.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
No.
No. Councillor Dillon.
I don't support.
That's a no. Councillor Santos.
Sorry about that. Yes, sorry.
It's a yes. Thank you. Chair Medeiros.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that motion carries 7-2.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item, City Clerk, I believe.
Through you, Mr. Chair, 6.4.
Yep, and I know we have numerous delegations, so I will hand it over to you, City Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe we only have one delegation on this, and there is a presentation from Anjan Rakshit. Anjan, we're just going to bring you into the session. You're in the session now. We'll bring up your presentation momentarily, and then you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. Please proceed.
This is Panjan Rakshit. I am representing Mount Pleasant North Phase 9 homeowners group. These are the homeowners who have received the notice from the city for amendment of official plan and zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, previous slide, sorry, previous slide. First of all, we want to say why is this submission? Mount Pleasant North Phase 9 homeowners group strongly oppose any amendment which will drastically reduce the available area for commercial property zone to 7% from 23,200 square meter to 1,600 square meters in the northwest corner of the Mount Pleasant North community. And this submission is intended to convey serious concerns of the existing homeowners in respect of the recommendations of the Planning and Development Department, which will cause imbalance in the current plan. The Planning and Development response to the issues expressed by the homeowners in the previous meeting dated June 21 are mostly subjective, not substantiated by facts and figures quoted from any research reports, and therefore they are questionable. And in some cases, they are contradicting. Next slide, please. So in this couple of slides, we'll take you through the homeowners' concerns, the Planning and Development Department's response, and the counter response by us, that is the homeowners. So first concern with the in June 21 meeting was the purchasing decision was based on the plan for large commercial zone at northwest corner of Mount Pleasant North, and drastic reduction of the planned commercial space will result into significantly lesser appreciation of property values for the homeowners who purchased the home there. The Planning and Development response was landowners are entitled to make an application under the Planning Act to make change to land use permissions on their property. These applications are processed under the Planning Act, are evaluated against provincial and municipal policies as well as technical merits. And based on the applicant submission, the staff have recommended approval of the development application. The impact of development on neighboring properties is not considered a planning matter in the Planning Act. Therefore, there is little evidence that suggests the property values are significantly affected by nearby development. Next slide, please. The homeowners' counter response to this is the Planning and Development view on property value impact is baseless and not supported by any research. The values of properties are significantly impacted by the location and its access to the transit, schools, and retail complexes. Every MLS listing for resale and the new home builders advertisement and brochures publicizes these for attracting customers. Our purchasing decisions of purchasing our home in this area were largely influenced by nearness to large commercial complex. The map was attached to our legal purchasing department, which showed this plan of commercial area. Next slide, please. Homeowners' second concern was residents need easier access to retail establishments such as large retail departmental stores, home improvement retail warehouses, and gas stations. The Planning and Development response was this type of retail establishments are based on market need. As noted in the commercial assessment, the market is trending towards larger stores with fewer locations. In addition, due to the quantity of goods usually purchased at these stores, an automobile is usually needed to access these stores. The distance of this large establishment from the area is reasonable. With respect to gas stations, although it is acknowledged that residents need car, especially for uses noted in this section, it is preferred that the need for the car is reduced, especially when it is intended that communities are more walkable. Generally, the goal is to increase the walkability of the city in general to decrease the need for gas stations. Next slide, please. The homeowners' counter response to this Planning and Development response was the Planning and Development view on the market trend is very subjective and not supported by any research by any globally reputed consulting firm. The location decision by large retail chains will not be based on short-term pandemic period, but will be based on long-term opportunity of retail traffic in this location. In the presentation on 21st June 2021 meeting, the distances of most of the nearest locations of major retail chains from this neighborhood were mentioned as quite far. Example, Walmart. Nearest Walmart is 7 kilometers away, Home Depot is 13 kilometers away, and Costco is 19 kilometers away. Under no circumstances these distances can be considered as reasonable, particularly when many of the homeowners in this neighborhood are seniors and have difficulty in driving to long distances. Next slide, please. We now continue with the argument of the homeowners in respect of the gas station. The Planning and Development Department argument of discouraging car ride contradicts their own admission that it is acknowledged that residents need car, especially for the uses noted in this section. So far, all the homeowners in Mount Pleasant North and other adjoining communities have been provided with 1 to 2 car garage and driveways, resulting in addition of thousands of car population in the neighborhood. The proposed amendment to build 260 more residential units may also result in driving the car population. We don't know how much, but we're assuming that it will be another 500 cars minimum. Providing no gas station for such large car populations of Mount Pleasant North adjoining community, which is running in thousands, cannot be considered as good planning. If the gas station is not provided in the community on the grounds of the need for building walkable community, with the existing homeowners' demand that 260 residential units proposed in the amendment should not be approved if this include any car parking space. Next slide, please. Homeowners, the next concern, concern 3, was need to keep retail to create jobs. The Planning and Development response was it is acknowledged the retail sector does create jobs, but mainly temporary positions, often relatively low paying. These jobs can be beneficial as they enable residents who want to work part-time the opportunity to gain income. For employment purposes, the city emphasized the creation of industrial skill and office-type positions which generally has higher compensation packages. Next slide, please. The homeowners' response to this Planning and Development response is, Planning and Development contradicts its own admission that the retail sector does create jobs. These jobs can be beneficial as they enable residents who want to work part-time the opportunity to gain income. This is stated in the Planning and Development report. But the city's emphasis for the creation of industrial skill and office-type positions, which generally has higher compensation packages, is not a valid argument for drastic reduction of retail spaces in favor of 260 residential units, as building of residential units don't meet the need for a large number of existing residents, particularly housewives and students, to augment their family income by working part-time in flexible retail jobs which pay minimum living wage guaranteed by the provincial government. Next slide, please. In conclusions, the concerns expressed in this submission are not only applicable for Mount Pleasant North Phase 9 community, which are the homes which are around this area which we are talking about, but these are also applicable to the entire Mount Pleasant North and adjoining communities. The city's notice to us for the public meeting was dated November 10, 2021. Did not include recommendations, that is summary or the detailed report. Instead, the recipients of the notice were told that such reports will be available at www.brampton.ca by November 26, 2021, which provided very tight deadline for the recipients to provide comments. The short period given to the receivers of notices gives a red flag to us on whether Planning and Development team is attempting to get the amendment approved hastily without adequate public consultation on the amendment, for which Planning and Development Department has been working for last 6 months, but giving us only 6 days time to respond. Therefore, it is our humble submission to the City Council to address these concerns and not to approve the proposed amendment in haste under pressure from the vested interests like landowners and developers. We sincerely hope that Council directs the concerned city officials to work out the compromised amendment so that there is no need for the residents to appeal the city's decision to the Ontario Municipal Board. This ends my discussions. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this subject.
Okay, thank you very much. Do members of committee have any questions?
Oh, Mr. Chair, it's Richard.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have Alan Parsons on the line as well as Bob Bjarke. And I appreciate the residents' comment with respect to Mount Pleasant and the parking issues and so on and so forth. So I would ask that Alan and Bob just provide a little bit of context from staff's perspective. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, staff.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, and through you, Mr. Chair. So the issues that the resident notes, there are matters that that staff are very sensitive to, and really through our analysis of this development application, we're wanting to ensure that we were making the right recommendation here, knowing that commercial uses are important for all the residents within our areas of the city, for their convenience sake, for their own operations, and all of the important reasons that it is that everyone needs really access to convenient commercial uses. A key consideration for us, though, was one of understanding the needs of the community overall, and that of really viability of the designated commercial uses that exist on the site currently. And so, really through our robust review, as we're looking at the wide number of issues that we always do with respect to urban design and transportation and engineering and such, there was a particular focus that we had on commercial needs assessment and market studies. And so it was we ensured that the applicant here really provided to us a robust analysis of the commercial information and really that of needs and demand and supply within the area here and the larger area as well. And they had done that through a very reputable market research firm looking at all those needs. And then further, knowing that it was very sensitive to us, as I'm saying, we ensured that a third-party review, really a peer review, was also done of that study to make really very sure that really the information that we were receiving could really not be refuted, and rather there was a really consensus amongst several experts on the matter, and so that had occurred. We had received a very fulsome assessment completed from the applicant. We had really run through the studies several times over, and really had met several times over with the peer reviewer that the city hired to look at this matter. All in all, it was understood through all of that work that yes, the demands for retail within this area here are met generally, and that there is the fulsome use of this site here really for exclusively commercial uses really was not seen as being viable at all, and rather though, knowing all of that detail, staff though was sure to work with the applicant to make sure that some commercial use though would remain on the site, really at the midpoint there of the site at the collector road as it travels through the site in an east-west fashion, and really having a commercial block remain really at a midpoint block in the development. We thought that yes, that'll help obviously the satisfy all the needs and convenience of the area residents, and it would serve as a nodal point for them as well. So yeah, through your chair, staff was very diligent in looking at this matter with our various experts, and really the recommendation that we've put forward tonight, which is in support of the application. Just rest assured that that one matter in particular was one that we focused in a significant way on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I do see, is there anyone else from staff that want to speak?
I think Ellen's provided a very comprehensive overview. I think there's very little I could add to that. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Councillor Willens.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Just to put it in context about the retail end of it, there's an area just a little bit west of this area. It used to be the old Osmington site, and I think there was a very comprehensive study done there as well, and I think it was actually done 2 or 3 times by the applicant that actually wanted to push for a large retail site there, but they found that it just wasn't viable. So I'm glad you broued that up. An area can only handle so many retail, but Now, speaking to the application, the applicant did come forward. I know that they came to speak with Councillor Kaleshi and I, as well as staff, and we did address some concerns that we had and some changes to the plan. And as far as staff's concerned, I think you guys have pretty well satisfied with the concerns we had at the time. I think, could you, am I correct on that, Alan, when I say that? I think I think you did say that you are met. They have met the concerns you had, and you did leave some commercial component to the project, because I've lived in this area for I have lived in the area longer than anybody, and there is quite a lot of grocery stores in the area and a lot of amenities that you can get to quite easily. So, but anyway, I'll do my comments at that, and I'll be happy to move the report. But if you want to comment on my questions to you, Alan, please do.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Lenz, and through you, Mr. Chair. So staff have looked at all of the issues that we had previously discussed, Councillor. Staff are satisfied with all of the elements associated with the commercial needs assessment, and really ensuring that there is a minimum quantum of commercial space that will remain on the site as shown on the plan. Further, Councillor, staff are very pleased with the work that the applicant here, Paradise Homes, has done with respect to retaining a heritage use on the site, relocating it to a really key portion of the site where it can be celebrated really well. The various other elements of urban design that is really being completed by way of the townhouse development and other form of residential products on site, staff are very pleased with as well. So we'll continue working with the applicant towards registering that final plan of subdivision application, so that this will here tonight really resolve the matter of zoning, really as staff's putting forward in a report for zoning and for a draft approval of the plan of subdivision. But we'll continue working with the applicant on all the various detailed design and landscaping matters as well. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Alan.
Okay, thank you very much. So I do see Councillor Woolens, you're fine to move the report?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay.
And receive the delegation.
Yes, thank you very much. So staff report and the delegation. Is there anyone opposed? Taken as read. I see none. So the motion carries. Thank you very much. And we now go to staff presentation.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, there was an added delegation, that's item 6.5 on the revised agenda from Mark Donardis, and this is in regard to staff report 7.4, and we'll just bring Mark into the session, and he does have a presentation to provide to committee.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
You can proceed, Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of committee, city staff, members of the public. My name is Mark Donardis. I'm a planning associate from GWD Planners. Our office is planning consultant to the owners of 10196 Bramley Road. A positive staff recommendation report is being considered this evening for the redevelopment of the subject property. I wish to thank the staff for their efforts to date. A great deal of time, energy, and resources have been put into the file to date. Our office and client appreciates the staff report. However, we find ourselves troubled by its recommendations. Next slide. So this is a bird's eye aerial photo looking northeast of the vacant property to give you some context. It is located north on the west side of Bramley Road, north of Peter Robertson Boulevard. The property was formerly occupied by a detached residential dwelling and a detached garage. The dwelling garage was demolished about 2007, 2008 after a fire on the property and has remained vacant since. Next slide. And these are just a few select photos of the property looking west from Bramley Road, as well as some photos internal to the site looking east. Next slide. And this slide includes a copy of the conceptual site plan, proposing a total of 8 townhouse units. It's a fairly modest form of infill redevelopment on the property. Next slide. And this slide includes a copy of the landscape and restoration planting plan. The proposal contemplates a 15-meter buffer from the south and west property limits of the Springdale Forest, which is owned by the city. The tree planting and restoration plan is intended to mitigate previous tree removal works and enhance the city-owned woodlot. The buffer is to be dedicated to the city at a future date. A time has not been determined yet. Next slide. So this slide provides an overview of the timeline to date. We are now approaching, believe it or not, 6 years in the process. And approving the application in principle per the staff report would prolong this timeline. And our client really has no sense of when it will conclude. And that is really the core of our issue. Next slide. So Section 36 of the Planning Act allows council of a municipality to specify the use of lands with a holding symbol, or an H symbol as it's commonly referred to as, until certain conditions are met, and at such time in the future, the holding symbol is removed, and the lands can be developed for whatever uses it's permitted to be used for. The H symbol, or H zone, establishes the proposed land use, but does not allow for the lands to be developed and to proceed for development in such time as any conditions of approval have been fulfilled to the city's satisfaction. So this is a common tool that's being used across the city on a site-specific basis. So it's not foreign to the municipality. We have seen it used on a property not too far from the subject lands on a very same townhouse project about 2 kilometers away about 2 years ago. Next slide. And so what is our request of Planning Committee this evening? We would like to request committee consider an alternative recommendation that would see the official plan amendment approved and the zoning bylaw amendment approved with a holding provision. The 7 technical studies that are listed on this slide would be finalized before the holding provision is lifted. And the required updates to these studies are very minor. We believe they would be best addressed during the site plan approval application, which is a future process should the owner here or another buyer or purchaser of the property decide to develop it. So to be clear, the property cannot be developed until the H symbol is lifted by council. So it remains as is until these studies have been fulfilled and updated to staff's satisfaction. Thank you for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions that committee may have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through the chair, it's Richard, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
We have Alan Parsons on the line, who's our director, who's looking after this file. So if he can just maybe provide some comment.
Thank you, Richard, and through you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps I'll just provide a little bit of background with respect to the recommendation report that staff has put forward for this application. And within the report, staff have noted that we are supportive of the development application here. We are satisfied that the residential product that's proposed at Townhouse Forms is really appropriate for development on the subject site. It is really compatible with the character of the area and such. The one item that really we do note within our report is that really in advance of the approval of the enacting documents, so being the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, we had asked within the report that the studies as noted on the screen here are completed for the city's purposes to review and to be satisfied on in advance of the matters being approved. In particular, it's the official plan amendment. The Mark Bernardis here rightly notes that the age provisions, holding provisions, are commonly used and really are really a key tool that we can apply to a zoning bylaw where it is that we do need some items to be addressed in advance of the lifting of that H, and then allowing the development to occur. In this case here, there is an official plan amendment that's associated with the application, and unfortunately there's no real ability for us to utilize an H provision in association with an official plan amendment, but rather it would apply solely to the zoning bylaw. So in this case, the staff did put forward our recommendations, noting the studies to be completed, which we can, I think, rightly say that the majority of the studies here do have some fairly modest amount of some reworking or additional information that's needing to come to staff. But in particular, there's some environmental studies here that are noted, and it's those ones in particular that staff are recommending that we receive and review in full towards an approval in advance of the implementing documents, the OPA in particular receiving approval. So just want to, through you, Chair, to really describe for committee members the background associated with the staff's report here relative to the request that's coming forward from the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I do see Councillor Dillon would like to first, you'd like to ask questions of the delegation first?
Actually, no, I'd rather speak to the report.
Okay, so we'll bring up the report now and go ahead.
Well, since I have a motion, I'm wondering if Peter can put that up.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll bring it up momentarily. Charlotte, if you can bring up Councillor Dillon's motion.
And so, in the meantime, just kind of want to summarize the relevant highlights for this application. Excuse me. And I think Mark went through a significant portion of it, but I'll just try to be as brief as possible. So, you know, this is a 8 townhouse unit application. It's not a big developer. It's a local family, 2 brothers, their wives. They drive truck, and they live in the Mount Nash area. And so they're just trying to get this development through and get a good application, because there's a need for intensification. That's something that they're looking at, and I know in Ward 9 and 10 in particular, we're trying to appease some of the requests as well of our residents. And so, excuse me, been in the application process since 2016. You know, City Planning Department deemed the application complete in February 2019, public meeting in April 2019. And the application proposes to amend the OP and the zoning bylaw to permit 8 townhouses, as I mentioned earlier. The key component of the proposal is the introduction of a 15-meter wide buffer abutting the south and the western side of the property. In support of the application, there's been a number of technical studies and plans that have been prepared and reviewed by city staff. My understanding is that the studies and plans have been revised, but there are a number of minor outstanding issues yet to be resolved, and none of them will have any bearing on the proposed land use and its appropriateness. According to the recommendation report, city staff are supporting the proposed land use, and last month the consultants were asked to sign off on a draft zoning bylaw, which included the H provision, as was mentioned, to which it was accepted and agreed to. They were given the understanding that the final recommendation and amendments would proceed to the planning committee, but 2 weeks ago they were advised that planning staff was reconsidering the H, and so you know, they were no longer prepared to advance their report. And so essentially what they're asking for now is moving ahead with the previously agreed to H, and you know, I think what it will do is allow these small developers, just again, these local residents essentially who live within the area to keep the application going. And it's a small infill project. It presents us with the opportunity to secure the restoration works and permit a modest development on the property. And so it's kind of a summary of things of what happened. They were promised the H. It was reneged upon. And a question to you, Alan, excuse me again. If this motion were to pass, what happens?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Dillon, with the motion here that I've just read quickly in advance of this item coming up, Councillor, and a quick read of it. I see that this matter, the official plan amendments and the zoning bylaw amendments, would be approved, by committee tonight, for ratification at council at the next council meeting. And that alongside the zoning for the property, there would be an H designation that would be utilized, and the H would be lifted upon I think it's 7 studies noted as not being approved yet, whereby though they would be approved at a later point in time, at which case the H would be lifted. Again, what's the piece that staff really was concerned with, and whereby we had confirmed ultimately that we're not going to be recommending an H to committee here by way of our report, is due to the fact that again there is an official plan amendment application associated here, and that there's no ability to utilize an H in association with an official plan amendment. So it really staff's professional recommendations here was that in advance of the official plan amendment identifying the development really having an approved manner to proceed, that first we do satisfy ourselves and approve the environmental studies associated with it.
And I understand, but it's Alan, it's been like 6 or 7 years. I've been going through this since the last term. If you go ahead with it, it's just the same as any other application. But they're also agreeing, which was agreed to before with the H, that they still have to get those requests, fulfill those requests that you made. And so that's simply all it is moving it along, approving it like it was supposed to when the H was added on. But what they're saying is that we'll complete these requests as soon as possible. And at that moment, again, the H would have been removed. And so the motion is before you, simply straightforward. Again, these are just some small developers. It's their first application, but they've been tied up. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, they're just truck drivers, the local truck drivers, and they just want to get this through. And again, there's really no harm in doing so. So the motion is for you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dillon. I do see Councillor Singh.
Thank you, and thank you for Councillor Dillon for putting this motion. I don't know the applicant. I've never spoken to the applicant. But starting at 6:57, my phone's been blasting. So what I would just respectfully ask, because as Councillor Dillon, as well, I do know the residents on the other side, and some of them have been contacting my office, just to be fair, because I want to avoid making this political. If we could just refer this to council. Give me a day to touch base, return all the calls, and make sure the residents feel like they're being consulted before any decision is made. I would just ask as courtesy that we do that. Just need a day. I'd like to return all the calls I got. I called the first 2 back as all related to this file, so it's just fair that the residents be heard. Thank you.
So my understanding is you're moving a referral to council. Councillor Singh, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And City Clerk, members of the committee can speak to the referral.
That's correct.
And I do that with all due respect to my colleagues. It's just, like I said, I've had a lot of residents contact me, and my phone's on blast, and I just want to return everybody's call and make sure they feel like they're all being consulted, whether they're pro or for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there's a referral on the floor, and I don't see any members of committee on the board. So now Councillor Dillon, go ahead.
I just want to respond to Councillor Singh. I think that may be the responsible thing to do. I think it'll allow him to contact his, the constituents calling him and make a better informed decision. And plus, it has to be ratified at council anyways. And so I'm supportive of that.
Okay, great. Great to see area councillors working together. So we do have a motion to referral. Is there anyone opposed to the referral? I see none. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Singh to receive the, there was no delegation, the delegation by the applicant. No, actually, by Councillor Singh. Is there anyone opposed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would also be receiving correspondence 11.4 as well as the delegation 6.5.
Okay, and receiving correspondence. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, I see none. We move on to the next item. Thank you. And now we go to the update staff presentation regarding the updates to the Central Area Community Improvement Plan, Development Charges Incentive Program. And I will invite Bindu Shah and Hendrik McNeil. Please go ahead and welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Good evening, committee members, staff and residents watching online. I hope you can hear me well. My name is Bindu Shah. I'm a principal planner with the city, and today I'll be speaking to a report which is item 7.2 on the agenda, which proposes changes to the Central Area CIP's Development Charges Incentive Program implementation guidelines. Many departments have supported this report. Today I'm joined by David Vanderberg, Manager Development Services, Janet Leaf, Manager Capital and Development Finance, and Stephen Ross, who's Deputy City Solicitor, along with Bob Bierke, our Director, to answer any questions on this report. Next slide, please.
We'll just bring up the slides in a moment. Bindu.
Yeah. Next slide, please. This slide shows the boundary of the Central Area CIP in red, which stretches along Queen Street from McLaughlin Road in the west to Bramley Road in the east. Within that area, you'll see an area in green, which is actually the limit of the DCIP boundary, which is a Development Charges Incentive Program. Next slide, please. So Brampton Central Area CIP was established initially in 2000 and revamped, expanded in 2007. It's been amended a number of times. Right now, there are only 2 incentive programs which have been activated through the approval of a budget and guidelines. The first one is DCIP, Development Charges Incentive Program, which we're going to be talking about today. And the second is the Facade and Building Improvement Program. Next slide, please. So the DCIP was established when Brampton wanted to, the goal in city building for downtown and central area was intensification, to attract intensification. And so there were 2 program objectives, one for downtown Brampton portion of the central area and one for the Queen Street portion. And as you can see, the intent was to move away from low density service commercial uses or suburban highway and service commercial uses to more of a mid to high density residential, mixed use, office entertainment kind of a structure. Next slide, please. So the Development Charges Incentive Program has implementation guidelines, which were also established. It includes the rules, criteria, monitoring issues, and other matters. It is separate from the CIP in a way because if you were to amend the implementation guidelines, the council has the rights to do that. We don't need to go to the minister. when can these adjustments be made? Actually, at any time the need arises. And as we have seen, we've amended it a few times already. So if, for example, there are limited funds or the demand and market, equation changes, so that's when an adjustment to this program can be made. Next slide, please. The background to this report came about because of a few reasons. In 2019, Council had directed that staff review the current CIP and provide some direction, further do some detailed analysis for the feasibility of the DCIP program. In 2021, Housing Brampton was established and approved by Council, which has a key big move, which is the push to incentivize and attract more purpose-built rental housing. Brampton staff is also working on a citywide CIP for employment and a new CIP for housing to support affordable housing and rental housing is also in the works, which is bound to kind of be brought to Council next year. So there's multiple forces at play here, which led us to look at the current CIP programs, DCIP program a bit more in detail. So far, the city has spent 30 million on DC incentives within the DCIP. This has helped to create residential units, also commercial and office spaces. Mostly it's been used by residential developments. The city, because there is a cap on this program of 1.56 million, currently the city has reached 1.2 million as the annual repayment for all the projects that have been approved and endorsed through this program. Next slide, please. So when we looked at the development trend in the central area within the DCIP and the overall city investment in that area, we noticed that intensification is already happening. There's a lot of investment that the city is planning and is already going on right now, including the ones on the slide, be it the LRT, Queen State PRT, Riverwalk, post-secondary expansions, or the IDP that's currently being established. So looking at this, next slide, please. These infrastructure investments also improve development viability and marketability of the projects. So to test whether we should continue the same DCIP incentive program as a financial tool, continue it over the years more. So we approached a consultant, NBLC, who has analyzed the financial viability of residential projects within this area. We looked at both ownership and rental applications and try to understand the current economics of development. And Appendix 3 of the report provides an expert opinion from NBLC. And so these are the high-level recommendations from that report. NBLC sees that the purpose-built rental projects will continue to benefit from supports, but it may no longer be necessary to incentivize new condo projects. And they think it is a reasonable and measured response to phase out this incentive for condos, but phase it out in a way that it doesn't impact the current performance of the ongoing projects or projects that are in the pipeline. So we are recommending exactly the same as you will see in the slides after this. Next slide, please. So here's how the program currently works. A developer proposes an eligible high-density residential development. It can be condo or rental. Currently, there is no distinction. The city provides the DC incentives. We know that the contribution limit is 1.56 million. So what that means is a developer does not pay the DCs at the time of building permit. So in a sense, there is a funding gap which is being created in the city's DC reserves. The city has to make this gap whole and close it. So what the city does is move funds from another reserve, which is general reserves, into the DC reserves. And that is the 1.2 million that I spoke about. That's currently the annual repayment that's going on since all these years. So at this rate, we calculated that an additional 391 large units or 679 small units can be approved under the DCIP and supported, be they condo rental, it doesn't matter at the moment. So that's what the current status of this is. Next slide, please. Looking at Housing Brampton, and which was endorsed recently, we know there's like a big move one, which is how best to support purpose-built rental housing. We know that we have to increase the supply of rental housing. It is also a goal of the region's PHHP, our OP, and there's a target of 25% of all new development to be rental under the PHHP. And also the problems it is creating, because we don't have the supply, or we have a very low supply of rental housing, which creates a pressure on our low density neighborhoods in the form of second units and lodging houses, as we know. Next slide, please. So what this report recommends is we strategically refocus the DCIP so that our finances are used in a very targeted manner, and we should provide greater support to rental housing. But we'll allow the current and recent development applications that are in the pipeline to transition, and so there'll be a sunset clause that they have to complete the process within a few years, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. Next slide, please. So here's what we are proposing. All applications, and you'll see the arrow in orange, all the applications that are currently under review, will let them complete and still benefit from this incentive, provided they come up with the building permit stage within 5 years from the date of the recommendation report, endorsement of this report. But we also know that there's some build-on applications that are sitting there and trying to complete their study so that they can submit a full application. So we'll allow those two, beginning from January 2020, to move ahead and take part in this program. But also we went back a little bit to 2016, the 5-year gap, saying if any rezoning application was approved, and still it's not reached our desk in the form of an application, we'll still consider that they be eligible, provided all of these reach the building permit, which should be issued within 5 years. The 5 years is, we understand it's a generous time frame, and it's up to committee and council if that were to be looked at, or maybe converted to 2 to 3 years. We understand that that's still possible. And so what this will do is let all these applications transition, and then only rental applications, which are new applications, will be eligible for this incentive program. So that's what the report recommends. Next slide, please. So here's our contact information. This concludes the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. As I said, David, Janet, Stephen, and Bob, they're all here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, and we'll bring the report. Do members of committee have any questions of staff regarding the report? Councillor Vicente.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank staff for doing this work. This was some direction that we gave early on, and I know it's been discussed for a long time here at the city. And, we need these incentives, and so it's important that we bring this forward. But during briefings that we had with staff, I think one thing that became clear is the way in which the transition period is established. If we could is it possible to have that slide up on the screen again? And I'd like to ask staff how we may then, through today's motion, shorten the period of time that a applicant would have to obtain a building permit. So can we shorten that to 2 years?
To you, Councillor. Yes, we did discuss that. And internally, we feel that would also be reasonable, because once a pre-con, which is even sitting there, or a rezoning comes after this report, chooses to submit a full application, it would still be possible to complete the site plan process and get the building permit within 2 years.
Okay, and I think for members of committee, when you consider the manner in which real estate keeps moving quickly up. If we're offering incentives and then we were to allow an unusually long period of time for this to turn over and materialize, that in essence becomes a different kind of incentive as real estate values continue to increase. And it's not to say that past performance is guarantee of what the future will bring, but we've seen real estate values, jump in multiples, particularly in a 5-year period. So I would ask that as we approve this today, that we reduce that period to 2 years. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vicente. Very good comments, and I do not see any further questions, so I'll have Councillor Vicente move the presentation and staff report and direction. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. Our next item, City Clerk, if you can help me with the next item.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the next item is 7.10, staff report regarding interim control bylaw 306-2003, Northwest Brampton, and there's the related correspondence 11.5.
Okay. And do members of committee have any questions? Okay, I see none, so I'll have Councillor Willens move the staff report and the correspondence. Is there anyone opposed? I see none. So our next item is the Heritage Board minutes of November, so November 18.1 is in consent. November 16th minutes of the Heritage Board, and Councillor Willens, I think you held it.
Yes, I did, through you, Chair. Peter, is it possible to bring up the minutes? I think this is the one that is at the Credit View and Queen, the old Starrett farm. I think it's in that. I don't know the name of the house, but oh, that might be it there. No. Is it the MO? Yeah, the MO Edwin Trimble house? Yeah, down. Yeah. Move it. No, move it back up. Sorry. Yeah, that one. Is that the both the area councilors may know, is that the old Starrett farm next to the Caniff property, I believe. Maybe if Councillor Riveros, that's the one. Okay, I'm just with respect to the farmhouse on the property. I've had a few calls on it, but not a lot, but some. I was hoping that the area councils would support. Maybe we just pull that particular item out of the agenda. I'm okay with the rest of the minutes from the Heritage Board. Just pull that out in so we can get a better clarification or understanding. I'm not saying I disagree with the report. I'm very supportive of the Heritage. I just need a better understanding of the existing building. So maybe we can, I don't know, Peter, would be a referral or a refer it back to staff so we can get a better understanding. I don't know if it needs to be deferred, and I don't think it needs to go back to the Heritage Board either because their comments are in there. So I'm just wondering if we can refer this portion only back to staff, of course, with the support of the area councilors, just because I've had some calls, so I don't know a lot about it. I would just have like a better understanding of it before I vote on that portion of it. I'm okay with the rest of the minutes. So would that be a referral to staff, Peter, to maybe have a meeting with the area councilors?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so there's a couple of options. One, it could be a referral back to staff for further consideration and a report back to Planning Committee. Or two, it could be a deferral of this item to the January 17th Planning and Development Committee meeting, and that would give sufficient time for any clarification to be provided, and then committee can make a decision with respect to this recommendation HB 058 at that meeting. So that's another option.
Yeah, sure. Maybe that's the better way to do it. That will give time. I know staff's busy getting a lot of stuff done, so maybe it's better we get that deferred back to that planning meeting you suggest, and that will give the area councilors and myself a better clarification on it. Like I say, I'm not against the heritage by any means. I wasn't sure. I just had some concerns, and some calls with some concerns. I just want to make sure that they get addressed. And if it is what it is, it is what it is. So I'll leave it there.
Through the chair, it's Richard, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we have Bob on the line in terms of the heritage aspect. So I just wonder if maybe Bob can provide some little commentary in terms of this issue, and happy to defer it to to January.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
So Bob,
Bob?
your mic's on, but we're not hearing you, Bob.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
All right, my apologies. So through the chair, I was just going to ask if there were particular aspects that you were looking for some clarity on, or just kind of the issue as a whole.
I think just the issue on a whole. I don't want to get into a long debate with this because we've had a long day. I just thought maybe best just this item, Bob. We can refer this to January or defer this to January, and then we can speak offline with the area councilors, of course, to get better clarification on it. I mean, if it is what it is, then it is. I'm just when I get calls, I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. That's all.
Okay, because I think this is a positive outcome from the discussions for the property and for the issue overall. It allows for the relocation of the house, but still does allow for the heritage treatment of the house, and it gives it appropriate prominence. But if you would like to have some additional time, we can certainly put a briefing together and provide some additional information in January, if that's your preference.
Yeah, that would be good. I'm okay with the rest. It was just this one item that was raised, and that's great if we could put this off until January, I guess, the 2017th, whatever it is. That would be great. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a referral moved by deferral, to next planning meeting. Is there anyone opposed? None. So do we have to separate? Do we have to vote them on separate, City Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. So the deferral motion is carried, and then you would be voting on the balance of the Heritage Board recommendations.
Okay, and also moved by Councillor Williams or Willens. Is there anyone opposed? I see none. So the motion carries. So our next item
is 10.1.
10.1 at the discussions. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. This was sort of teased out at budget meetings, and I'll start off with asking some questions from staff. So, with development charges, those designated for let me back up. Those in our reserves for development charges, those can only be used for certain things, correct?
Through the chair to the councillor, this is Janet Lee, Manager of Development Finance. To Councillor Singh, you are correct. The Development Charges Act dictates what the monies collected can be spent for, and unfortunately it is quite strict in terms of what the DCs can be spent on. So our DC bylaw collects for a number of services, including roads, transit, recreation, library, and so on. And what that says, and what the DC Act says, is the monies collected for transit, for example, must be spent on transit projects, and the monies collected for the road service must be spent for roads projects.
Okay, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because as we've been looking at road windings in particular, those that are held for roads, we're really restricted to use them for roads only, right? So it's kind of interesting because we're stopping some road windings, but we're also, that money held back is also has to be used for future road windings somewhere else, potentially.
Through the chair to the councillor, you're correct. We do have a number of projects that we are collecting roads development charges for. And it's not strictly just roads. There are related projects such as the construction of bridges, grade separations, traffic signals and intersection improvements, new sidewalks, and also property acquisitions. And with respect to the road widenings, I understand there is a bit of a pause on 4 to 6 lane widenings at the current moment, but we are still collecting for 2 to 4 lane widenings. And those, I understand, are still going forward. And we did see some of those in the 2022 capital budget.
Yes, I am aware of that. Next question is future development charges. Are we going to still be collecting for roads as well?
Through the chair to the councillor, that largely depends on the next transportation master plan that planning is undertaking right now. I understand that there's an RFP for the next transportation master plan. And I understand the timeline for that, for the completion of that project will be sometime during 2023. So the transportation master plan really is a foundational document that supports the development charges bylaw. So the development charges bylaw really is just a rate setting study. It doesn't set any policy on how the city will move people or goods. All the DC bylaw does is it follows the leads of the various master plans that council has approved. So whatever, if the new transportation master plan says that we're going to move our people and goods in a different way, let's say through active transportation or through transit means, then you'll see those projects in the next DC bylaw review.
So through the chair, it's Richard. So completely agree with what Jana is saying, that the master plan set the stage for the development charges, and we got Henrik on the line as well. But yes, your master plan set the stage for whether it's water, wastewater, whether it's roads or what have you. It sets the stage for the development charge study that gets updated. So I'm not sure, Henrik, if you want to provide any comment on the transportation side of it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Richard. And I really don't have that much to add to Janet's good description there, but just wanted to say that the relationship between the TMP and the development charges work, I guess, in what had happened in previous iterations of that plan was that we always led with the DC work first. It was always kind of precipitated by kind of that 11th hour to get that analytical work done. And the policy work kind of followed, so it was done a little bit backwards. I think the way we've got it structured right now, the TMP that will be approved will be before the development charges review begins, or at the very beginning of that timeline, so that that policy foundation, like Janet had explained, will be in place to inform the DC work. And part of the terms of reference, in fact, for the TMP does include some of that preliminary analytical work that then populates the development charges background study for transportation as well.
Okay, so I'm just going to paraphrase just to make sure I understand. So basically, we have these master plans, including transportation master plan. And so the DCs are actually quite dynamic in the sense they change according to the changes that are, I guess, approved from those master plans, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So basically, if we want to if our transportation master plan in the future says we need to allocate more monies, given all the projects coming, the way we want to change moving goods and people, then we would approve that transportation master plan, and then that would obviously go to the DC bylaw review, and then it would, I guess the proportions and percentages would adjust there. I guess that's in our power at the end of the day, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm actually gonna pull this motion back because that makes a lot of sense. So I guess a better way and a more efficient way is to actually focus on the transportation master plan and get it robust and work from there, and we can from there put more monies from development charges into transportation. And given that we have had a lot of savings from road widenings, we still have some on the way, so we could use those fundings for future ones. But if we feel like we're gonna be not doing as many road windings, then we could just adjust those in the development charges bylaw review. Am I making sense?
Through the chair to Councillor Singh, yeah, I think that's essentially it. And when we're talking, I guess part of this is kind of a language thing too. When we're talking about road widenings, I think what we're really addressing is additional lanes for cars. It doesn't mean that road widenings might not happen. It's just what we're putting in those roads to accommodate people moving capacity that might change. And again, having that policy direction approved by council gives us the kind of the justification to be able to include that in the DC.
Yeah, I guess I was under the misunderstanding that these were sort of, even the weight and the percentages, they were kind of firm by the province. But I guess ultimately all municipalities have the flexibility through their master plans.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Just want to know if I'm understanding correctly. Would that be correct? The cities have the flexibility?
Yeah, maybe Janet, I'll let Janet speak to it more to the mechanics of the DC, but I believe that is we do have that flexibility.
Yeah, through the chair to the councillor, yeah, the percentages that you are speaking of, yeah, they are set by the bylaw for a period of 5 years. But the DC bylaw only has a shelf life of 5 years. So in effect, they are fluid. So once that bylaw review comes up again, we can look at those percentages and we can look at the projects and switch them for whatever the TMP may dictate at that point in time.
And what's the targeted date for the, we're undergoing it right now, correct? For the TMP?
Through the chair to Councillor Singh, sorry, is the timeline, the work plan for the TMP?
Yeah.
Currently, the RFP has gone out to market. We expect to bring a consultant on board early in January of 22. It's kind of a 4-phase work plan. We'd be reporting back to council with the first phase probably by June. The requested time frame for the study is approximately 18 months. It's probably ambitious because this TMP really is about kind of turning around the direction that we've done before. But the anticipated completion would be in Q2 of 2023.
Okay, and my last question, and I just wanted to not have a budget, but have it here because it was getting a little bit off tangent on actual budget numbers for this year, but a high level discussion. So I really want to thank staff for indulging me. My last question is, when we change the DC bylaw next time, does it affect new builds that are approved? Say the block plans already approved. Would they have to pay the DC from the previous whatever they were previously, or after the DC bylaw?
Through the chair to Councillor Singh, that I apologize. I can't give you a straightforward answer on that because The province recently changed the development charges legislation in terms of the rate that we charge the developers. So I'll try to be brief in my summary. In essence, if a developer submitted a development application on or after January 1st, 2020, and the city deems the application complete, then the DC rate is frozen at the time of complete application.
That's what I'm trying to ask. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. But but we are still seeing several residential building permits whose application was submitted prior to that January 1st, 2020 date. So they would pay the DC at the time, at the prevailing rate at the time the building permit is issued. So it's a little bit, we're kind of in a transition period right now. Some of the permits that we're issuing, mostly on the ICI side, they're paying a rate that was frozen at the time of complete application. But most of the residential permits that we're issuing right now, they're still under the old rules of the Act, and they're paying the prevailing rates at the time of permit issuance.
Okay. So I guess it just highlights the case. Thank you for that. And it just highlights the case to get the stuff underway and get it approved as soon as possible. Thank you to staff. Had a lot of questions, and thank you for taking the time out. It was very informative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will now proceed. Councillor question period. Do any members of committee have questions? I see none. Public question period, City Clerk.
There are none, Mr. Chair. I do see Councillor Councillor Fortini on the board. I don't know if it was for the last time.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, Councillor Fortini, go ahead.
It's okay. I was just going to ask one question to staff about that. We put a pause on all roads from 4 to 6. Is that what I understood?
Through the chair to Councillor Fortini, yeah, that's correct. Through Public Works, we're doing the transportation master plan is intended to formulate, to do a comprehensive citywide assessment and come up with a policy. In the interim, however, following on the approval of council, we took a report back in the spring, I think, that outlined the principles and objectives of the TMP, as well as an interim strategy for addressing 6-lane road widenings in light of Vision 2040 directions for complete streets and the issues and the conflicts between 6-lane road widenings and their correlation to safety and community design. So those are being the projects that are currently imminently in the kind of construction tendering timeline bucket. We're working through those on a case-by-case basis. But there's a number of roads in that capital program that are forecast still, they're a couple of years out. So those ones will be considered comprehensively through the master plan work, and then a decision can be made at that time.
Yeah, I kind of know about that William Parkway and Torbram, but we're not collecting now, no charges now on development charges for widening. So that means we're never going to widen roads again. I thought it was only those two roads we're looking at. Now we're looking at every single road across the city. So how are the cars going to move around? And we're not even collecting development charges for those roads now.
Through the chair to Councillor Fortini, I think this is the intent of the TMP to look at it. And I think when we go back to both the city building vision and the principles in terms of kind of a 20 growth scenario, we've already, most municipalities know that we can't build our way out of congestion. So if we do build to 6 lanes, we're basically introducing this this consequence of induced demand that we're actually producing more traffic than we otherwise would. What these 4 to 6 lane widenings were in effect doing was they were providing some temporary relief, but at the end of the day, you end up with the same problem that you started. So there is an imperative over the long term to find solutions to move people more efficiently that don't necessarily require everybody to be driving, in particular in single occupant vehicles. There's recognition in the work that we're doing, even in this review, as well as in the vision, that we're not doing away with cars. That's an inevitable future for our city. However, we do have to make some serious inroads to be able to get people who can make those shorter trips by other modes, to get them out of cars, or else we're going to end up in a congested state. And if we continue to widen to 6 lanes, we're going to end up with a very poorly designed, I think, not a people-oriented city, but a car-oriented city. So that's something that'll be explored further through the TMP.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But the thing is, we need some roads with 6 lanes, 3 lanes. These trucks are getting stuck. They're delivering food, they're delivering stuff. So we got to look at certain roads too. I'm not saying every road, but if we just going to leave everything 1 or 2 lanes, you go on Queen Street now, everyone's taking Queen Street, and it's already bumper to bumper trucks. So we got to provide also certain roads so it doesn't all congest in one area. So we got to still put aside development charges just in case we do need them. The money's there. So, just my thought. So, okay.
Through the chair, Councillor, your thoughts are well received. And goods movement again is also obviously a huge part of what we'll be looking into. And I don't know whether Janet can maybe respond better to just that fact of the monies that are being collected. I think we've put a pause on actually building those immediate projects that are in the bucket right now, but I don't know that that's actually correlated. It doesn't mean that we're stopping to collect, because I don't think that happens until a new DC bylaw is actually approved. So I don't know if Janet could clarify that.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Fortini, Henrik is correct. We haven't paused the collection of development charges for 4 to 6 lane widenings. Council passed the development charges in 2019, and there has been no amendments since then, since that pause on the 4 to 6 lane widenings. So we continue to collect for 4 to 6 lane widenings on every single building permit in which DCs are levied.
Yeah, and we got to be very careful on the goods movement here. We had a thing at the region, a presentation a couple of years ago, and that's what's really costing the business and everything, driving so high, is the delivery. And at the end, we all pay for it. They're stuck in traffic. They can't get things moving around to stores and all. So that all costs. That's why everyone wants these truck stops, because they're close to the highway. And we're getting stuck with all these truck stops. So we solve one problem, we create another. So we got to look at these roads where it has to go. If we have to widen to get these trucks moving, to bring things, material or things to groceries, that is a big, big expense. It's billions of dollars. Just Nestle up the street here on Airport Road, they spend almost $1 billion a year just on transport. So, we're stopping the roads, but we're stopping also the goods here. And at the end, when you go to a store, that's why the prices are starting to go higher and higher, because really they're spending the time on the road, the truck driving, the diesel, and everything. So let's be careful on what we do. Certain roads, I agree, we shouldn't have to widen everything, but certain roads, we got to get the vehicles moving too. Anyway, thank you for the report, and looking forward in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fortini. So members, City Clerk, do we have any questions from the members of the public?
There are none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe this is the last committee meeting of this year, and certainly as we adjourn, I will ask Councillor Fortini to move the motion to adjourn tonight's meeting to our next scheduled meeting, January 17th at 1 p.m. and just take this opportunity as the chair of Planning Committee, along with Councillor Fortini, and I'm sure all my colleagues would want to express our sincere gratitude to staff, especially those supporting the Planning Committee, for all the amazing work during the year. And I know this has been one of the challenging years, and it's just a reflection of the great work and the great productivity and how effective our staff have been. So thank you very much. And a motion moved by Councillor Fortini. Anyone opposed? I see none.